Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. I am your host, Nash, and let's get into it. How was Gameweek 27 for you? With an average of 45 points, it was a tougher week than the last one. I got 41, wasn't a great week, especially considering I had 16 points on the bench. Very painful. So, what caused the week to go the way it went? Well, the first thing was clean sheets. Clean sheets didn't go the way we thought they would go. Home teams didn't do what they were supposed to do, and so you find there were only West Ham Bournemouth was one of the clean sheets, Brighton and Manchester United. Nobody else could keep a clean sheet, and so that hurt our defenders. And unless you had the goalkeeper from either Liverpool, Brighton, or Manchester United or West Ham, you weren't doing much, and those are not popular keepers. After Palmer's showing last week, we were all like, yes, Palmer captaincy. Chelsea gets a red card and he's the first person to be substituted. But if you're one of those like me who brought in João Pedro, well done. At least he got more than Haaland. Out of nowhere, you have all of these Manchester City assets, and then it's O'Reilly who scores the double. And he could have had a hat-trick even. Semenyo, nothing. Haaland, nothing. Eze hasn't scored a goal in nearly 2 months. And then guess what? Against Tottenham, he shows up and scores 2 goals. Last time he scored was the hat-trick he had against, you guessed it, Spurs. So maybe some people have teams like how Mamouche had a goal contribution in the Newcastle game. We should have all brought in Van Dijk after Liverpool's defensive showing last week. Maybe it's not too late. You can do it this week. Liverpool shows up. Well, they don't show up. They get the clean sheet, and that's what matters. They won in the dying seconds of the game. A bunch of us were like, Stadium of Light being Sunderland's home is a tough place to go. Let me rest my Fulham assets. Then guess what? Fulham win 3-1. Henderson, if you still have him at this point, well done. Finally gets a clean sheet. If you're like me and you think the best player to have in Manchester United is Bruno, well, 2 points and 0 DEFCON points. How'd you like that? How'd you like them apples? If you're like me, you thought Chelsea would keep a clean sheet, but once they got that red card, the game really flipped and they were lucky not to lose. You might be like me and still have Ego Thiago because you know the minute you're removing from your team is going to score a hat-trick. Aston Villa have been good for clean sheets and then they get scored a really ridiculous free kick. Spurs are just Spurs. Manchester United keep a clean sheet? Arsenal clean sheets are really a thing of the past now. So if you had many defenders, that must have come to burn you just like it did the double game week that they just had. So let's look at the round performers. Starting off with defenders. And by defenders, I mean goalkeepers. Henderson, 16 points. Talk about a haul. Amundsen, 10 points. Petrovic and Lamens, 9 points. Verbruggen and Becker, 7 points apiece. Like I just said, O'Reilly scored 2 goals, 17 points. Mitchell and Virgil van Dijk, 11 points. Van Hecke and Munoz. Konate, Diouf, 9 points. Eze, 14 points. Iwobi and McAllister, 13 points. Stach, 11 points. Gomez and Enzo Lefebvre, 10 points. When it comes to forwards, Victor Gyökeres, the man who is having a good 2026, 13 points. Raul Jimenez, 11. Fleming, 9. Welbeck, 9. Sesko, 8. If you're listening to the podcast, and if you listened to the one last week, you know that I gave really decent recommendations. I hope some of you followed. When looking at the fixtures, the highest scoring game of the weekend was also the marquee game of the week. Now, I'm going to just reduce its ranking from just the highest scoring game of the week. And it is Arsenal 4, Spurs 1. Now, I was excited to see Igor Tudor because I thought he would have these guys defending well. But that was not meant to be. Spurs, maybe the game came too early for them. So I'll still give them the benefit of the doubt because they looked up until when it was 1-1, up until halftime, let's say. They had played a good game and they were respectable. And then it just all crumbled. Eze had 2 goals. Like I said, he hadn't scored since the last time they played last year. And he hadn't been doing much, actually. And Gyökeres scored 2 goals. 2 really good goals. I really liked his first goal, a really great shot. Not the goal of the weekend because I think that belongs to Stark from Leeds. But he scored 2 goals, and should they win, only 10 games left, he will have played his part. Spurs, if they were ready for this game, it didn't show. At least they just fell apart. Timber, Saka and Odegaard had the assists. Kolomwani had 1 bonus point, Eze had 2, and Gyökeres had 3. If you're an Arsenal fan, it was a great game. I think the marquee game of the week really was Manchester City versus Newcastle because these are actually both good teams and both are in the higher end of the table. It was a competitive game, but honestly, I think that Manchester City should have won this game like 4 or 5-1. Mamouche missed chances. Haaland didn't really have a chance, but O'Reilly could have had a hat-trick. Foden could have had a goal. Newcastle just weren't as competitive as they have been in this fixture. And Hall scored through an assist from Ramsey, and Mamouche had an assist to O'Reilly, and Haaland had another one. And that's just how the game ended. Semenyo had maybe 1 chance. I feel like Manchester City players were a bit selfish and were not looking for the right players or making the right decisions at the right time, while Newcastle just weren't really up for it this time. Maybe they're focusing on Europe, which is coming up this week. I don't know. It isn't quite clear. Anyway, now when it comes to bonus points, O'Reilly had 3, Rodri had 2, Haaland, Donnarumma, and Ramsey had 1. Just to show you the kind of game it was. And for the first time in a long time, I saw Haaland defending like crazy. I before looking at the defensive contributions, I thought he was going to be up there. He had 4, but they were all vital. I honestly don't think Eddie Howe is the right man for Newcastle long term, and I think it's about time that they start moving on from him. Kind of like how Manchester City did with Mancini. I just think it's time for somebody else. And speaking of managers that were chosen for the wrong jobs, Vitor Pereira, I don't know. But anyway, I don't think you hire a relegated manager to bring another relegated manager. I don't know. To save a team from relegation battle, it doesn't make sense to me. But I don't feel as strongly about this as I did Thomas Frank. When it comes to disappointing games, I swear Chelsea have let me down for the last 3 weeks. But they're so young and inconsistent that this is consistent with their inconsistency. They drew with Leeds, they drew with Burnley. Useless. And then Aston Villa, who should be better, who should know better, drew with Leeds. At one point, it looked like they were going to be dark horses in this Premier League title race, and then they drew 1-1. And I'm also disappointed with Brentford because Igor Thiago, ever since I brought him back, has done absolutely nothing. I'm on the verge of removing him, which means he's on the verge of a hat-trick. So, which means 1 more week. Also, to be fair, Sunderland losing at home, I didn't see that happening. I mean, Liverpool made sense, but Fulham, that didn't make sense to me. Unless you're telling me Mukiele, who is also part of the reason I did nothing this week, who got injured, might be that influential at the back. It's possible. I mean, people have systems and players make the system work. And so him getting injured maybe might have just messed them up big time. I mean, for all of us who have him, we know how much he contributes in terms of assists. And just random DEFCON points. He does his work. Some stats from the weekend. Before Axel Disasi arrived, West Ham had kept 1 clean sheet in 26 games. Since his arrival, they've kept 3 clean sheets in his last 4 matches. So you can attribute the defensive improvement to Axel Disasi. Gyökeres scores a double after being brought in for the double game week and doing nothing. I find that a little painful and funny at the same time. The most captain player by the top 10,000 managers in the world was Erling Haaland by 47%, Cole Palmer by 20%, and João Pedro by 19%. Everybody had high hopes for Chelsea in the Burnley game. Maybe I should take it back. Maybe that was the most disappointing game. James Hill, who was on my bench, has now returned in each of the last 5 game weeks. 6 points, 7 points, 7 points, 9 points, 6 points, and he's 4.0. So if you're looking for a cheap defender who returns, get him. James Milner now has the most appearances in Premier League history. He has 654, the only player to have appeared in all 24 FPL seasons since its launch in 02 go 3. However, Gareth Barry has still played more minutes than him. Other stats. Sesko has scored 6 goals in his last 7 appearances for Manchester United in all competitions, having scored just 2 goals in his first 17 games. Is this the Carrick effect? Manchester United are one of only 3 sides that remain unbeaten across the Big 5 European leagues since Boxing Day, alongside Inter Milan, and Borussia Dortmund. Man United have played 10, won 6 and drawn 4. Inter are unbeaten in 11 and Dortmund unbeaten in 8. Michael Carrick is still yet to lose a game in any competition across both of his spells as Manchester United manager. Played 9, won 7, drawn 2. Only Ole Gunnar Solskjaer with 11 and Herbert Bamlet with 10 have managed more games before experiencing their first defeat. Only Robert Pires, 7, and Emmanuel Adebayor, 6, have more Premier League goals for Arsenal against Tottenham than Eze, who has 5, who now has as many goals in this league fixture as Thierry Henry and Robin van Persie in 2 games. That's ridiculous. Eze is only the second player to score 4+ goals in the North London derbies in a single season, after Arsenal's Ted Drake in 1934-35, and this also accounts for 80% of Eze's Arsenal goals. He only shows up for 1 game. Liverpool have seen 7 winning goals in the 90th minute or later in the Premier League games this season. 3, 4, and 4 against, the most by any side in a single campaign. Vitor Pereira is the first manager to lose his first Premier League game of a spell in charge of a club due to a 90th minute or plus winning goal since Nuno Espirito Santo did it with Nottingham Forest against Bournemouth in December 2023. They held up well. At 96-10, Liverpool scored their 4th latest winning goal on record from 06-07 in the Premier League. 2 of those 4 have come in the 2 wins at the City Ground. Also Darwin Núñez in 98-37 in March 2024. Raúl Jiménez has the best conversion rate from the penalty spot in Premier League history. He is currently at 100% with 13 of 13. Netting past 12 different goalkeepers. Erling Haaland won 12 duels against Newcastle, his most ever in a match. I told you guys, when you could see it, it felt so important every time he won the ball. With Nathan Collins coming on for Brentford, James Milner has now played in the same game as all 879 players to make 100 or more Premier League appearances since 2002-2003. That's a bit of an odd record. Anton Stark scored a really great free kick against Aston Villa, my pick for goal of the weekend. So he has 3 free kicks this season. Szoboszlai also has 3. And this is the first Premier League season to see 2 players score at least 3 goals from direct free kicks since Eriksen and Jason Panchan, talk about blast from the past, did it in 14-15. And they also scored 3 each. There were contrasting fortunes for this week's most brought in players. Cole Palmer was brought in by 474,000 people, got 3 points. João Pedro was brought in by 482,000, and he got a good return of 7 points. When it comes to DIFCON points, Ampadu leads away along with Bissouma with 21 points. It was actually great to see Bissouma play. Dragusin had 20, Anderson had 19, and Sarr rounds up the top 5 with 17 points. The most selected player was Haaland. The most captained player was Haaland. Any guesses as to who the most vice-captain player was? You guessed it. It was Haaland. Let's look at the top transfers brought in this week. When you score 2 goals, that will help. O'Reilly was brought in by 300,000 players. Virgil van Dijk, 257,000 managers. Szoboszlai, 123,000 players. Thiago, that's interesting, 118,000 players. Semenyo, 112,000 players. Now, this will not surprise you, but the most transferred players out are Chelsea players. Number 1, Enzo Fernandez, 187,000 players. Chalobah, 182,000 players. Timber, 120,000 players. Bruno Guimaraes, 112,000 players. João Pedro, 96,000 players. The most, wow, I'm just shocked. The player that got the most points this week is some guy who's called Thomas. I'm so surprised because I looked at his captain and I just was like, what? Okay. So his captain is Henderson, the goalkeeper for Crystal Palace. Can you believe that? And it's because Mateta was his captain, but was injured. So he has Reece James. So Henderson got 32 points. I got 41. Anyway, Henderson, 32 points. Reece James, 6. Virgil van Dijk, 11. Saliba, 2. Munoz, 9. So this guy really believed in Crystal Palace. Eze, 14. Semenyo, 4. Rodrigo, 6. McAllister, 13. Gyökeres, 13. João Pedro, 7. Such an interesting team, 117 points. Our table was a disaster. Nicola Spadija was the top performer with 72 points. Nicola had Alisson in goal with 7 points, Milenkovic 4 points, Munoz 9 points, Van Hecke 9 points, Rogers 2 points, Captain Cody Gakpo 6 points, Elanga 2 points, Cunha 3 points, Eze 14 points, João Pedro 7 points, and Welbeck 9 points. And that's how they got 72 points. Number 2 is a 3-way tie. Melvin Keter, Naeem Ali, Victor Nyabola all got 67 points. Ashwin Lee was 5th with 66 points. On the other end of the table, Ayodele Oladuni was the least point getter, getting 24 points this game week. In goal, he had Raya, who had 3. I think he forgot to make his team because he had Gabriel, who gave him 4 as his captain. Tarkowski, 1 point. Ruben Dias, 0. Saka, 5. Gakpo, 3. Semenyo, 4. Salah, 3. Kluivert, 0. Richarlison, 1. Mateta, 0. So as you can tell, this is a team that is inactive. Michael Miner was second from bottom with 25 points. Mark Giosh was third with 26 points. Amos Mangi, 4th with 27 points. Tatjana Mislenovic, Kevin Walker, and Moses Moshe were tied for 5th with 28 points. Most points lost on the bench was Reeve Masime, who lost 26 points on the bench. I'm so happy. I thought I'd be up there because I had quite a number of points on the bench. But clearly, Reeve did better than me. He had, wow, goodness, Wilson, 8 points. Van Hecke, 9 points. Petrovic, 9 points. That is painful. So that's how they got 26 points on the bench. Elliot Joroge and Peter Dennis were tied in second place for 25 points on the bench. Identity was 4th with 24 points on the bench. And Brian Murilla was 5th, along with Sir Carlos, the Ghana Gaveru, and Sam Loud with 22 points on the bench. Abuki Jr., Nicolas Spadija, Angulanayo were tied for the most goals scored by players in their teams with just 4 goals. So as you can tell, it was a tough week. Also by just 72 as the highest was indication that it was going to be a tough week. Team with the best midfield this week belongs to Escobar Season, who had 32 points from his midfield. Ashwin Lee's defense did job and they got 36 points from the defense. Well done. When it comes to the most transfers this week, Marcos Peters, 6 transfers made this week. And then we have a 4-way tie, or is it a 5-way tie, with Christy Kadavilis, G-Star Glitz, Gwan Kimko, Harry Potter, Victor Nyabola, tied with 5 transfers made this game week. When it comes to most points gained from transfers, Aaron Mwindi was the top performer this week, 21 points. His team is 21 points from the decisions made this week. And I really like the team name, Optigals Prime. Roll out. Anyway, number 2 is Harry Potter, who gained 16 points from the transfers made. Reeve Masime made 15 points. Can you believe? And this is the same person who had 26 points on the bench and still made good transfers. Kojudanso and Young Mula Bebe got 11 points from the transfers made. When it comes to the other end of that equation, Victor Nyabola lost 19 points thanks to the transfers made. Suraj Baigane lost 17. Abel Kivunja lost 16. Gwan Kimko, Emmanuel Ubuya, and Johnny Watson each lost 13 points from the transfers made. Colin Skoggy's team had the highest team value with 106.3. Well done. Angular Nayo is the team with the lowest team value at 96.7. Alan Muchangi, Abdul Malik, Mike Wow, and Kimeo Mutinda, along with Richard, have gained 0.4 to their team value. Texas Tens has lost 1.4 million in team value. They definitely used their wildcard. Yep, wildcard was used. When it comes to the best differential this week, of course, you know it is the player with the highest points with the lowest selection. So, number one, of course, is O'Reilly, who was picked by only 9% of us and had 17 points. He used to be in my team until Pep Roulette killed me. Now, number two is Henderson, 16 points, chosen by 5% of us. Eze, 14 points, chosen by 4% of us. Gyökeres, 13 points, chosen by 6% of us. And lastly, Raul Jimenez, 11 points, chosen by 1% of us. Ooh, that one is really sweet. And just in case you're wondering, 1% is 2 people in our group. When it comes to rank and progress, Naeem Ali has increased his global ranking by 684,000 positions. Michael Miner has dropped 710,000 positions globally. Streak of Green Arrows, Oti Omondi has been on the rise, and it is his 9th straight week of Green Arrows. Show me your ways, Sensei. When it comes to a streak of Red Arrows, Peter Dennis and Regan Orina, 9 straight weeks in a row. Wow, that's tough. When it comes to our league, Melvin Keter and Mark Maura have jumped 14 positions each. So it seems like the jumps aren't that high anymore. When it comes to dropping, Michael Miner is by himself, having dropped 20 positions in our league table. When it comes to captain choices, as has been the trend for a long time, Haaland is the preferred captain with 72 of us choosing him as captain. Joao Pedro was second most selected in our group with 31 of us choosing him as captain. Palmer was chosen by 18, followed by Bruno, who was selected by 16. I'm so sorry to all of you. Semenyo was chosen by 9 managers to be their captain. Gabriel by 7. And I've got a feeling these 7 people did not change their captain by mistake. The Gameweek just slipped by them. Rice was chosen by 6. This as well. Saka 5. That as well. The Gyökeres ones who didn't change, you're the lucky ones. Ekitike was chosen by 3. Salah 3. Thiago 3. Watkins 3. Rogers 3. Wood 2. Mbumo 2. Voltemada, Bowen, Hudson-Odoi, Grealish, Foden, Gakpo, Wirtz, Raul, Enzo, Evanilson, chosen by 1 manager each. Unlike last week, at the top of our table, there have been changes. Only number 1 and number 2 have maintained their positions. Anomi Dunga is still number 1 with 1662 points, and he has about a 28-point lead over Alan Muchangi, who has 1634 points. Papi Chulo has jumped over Mr. Leon Mortier, and he now has 1607. Leon Mortier has dropped. He has 1601 to number 4. Franklin Asiema jumps up to number 5, and he has 1594 points. Amos Langat has 1589 points. Number 7 is Madangani Kihoro, who has dropped to number 7, and he has 1580 points. Jeffrey Jeremy has jumped to number 8, and he has 1573. Charlie's Reds have not done well this week, and he has dropped to number 9 with 1570 points. And at number 10, we have John Mwangemi, who has 1563 points. 100 points from number 1 is number 10, just like last week. So that gap hasn't grown much. It is just the same. So at least the gap isn't too much. But as you can see, the gap between number 1 and number 2 has increased to 28 points. So Arnold might be running away with it. I know we have just roughly 10 weeks left, but for those of you in the top 10, maybe I would say even maybe to the top 15. There's still something there. At the other end of the table, at the very bottom, we have Bruce Abungana, who has 210 points. Marcos Peters has 293 points. Mark Maura has 766 points. Murunga Manyara has 960 points. And Mike Bogwa has 963 points. So, as you can hear, it's a foregone conclusion. The bottom is the bottom, and the top is the top. When looking at the number 1 team in the world, we have a new leader as well, Luca Ortulan, the team name Mirinda. Luca has 1782 points. In goal, he has 3 from Raya, Virgil van Dijk 11, Munoz 9, Gabriel 2, Bumo 6, Rice 4, Wilson 8, Fernandez 2, Krupi Jr. 2, Thiago 2, Haaland captain 12. 782 is 122 points above our number 1. And that's why we play our mini leagues, that we can have fun. The game week resumes on Friday, and we'll see Wolves take on Aston Villa. Now, when you look at the recent form, in the last 5 games, Wolves have lost 2, won 1, drawn 2. Villa have drawn 2, won 1, lost 2. So pretty much identical form. Last time out, Wolves were beaten by Crystal Palace 1-0 in the dying seconds of the match, while Aston Villa drew the game with Leeds in the dying seconds of the match, showing that these two teams benefited and lost from late goals. Now, both teams are not in great form, as you have heard. Their head-to-head, even though kind of irrelevant, favors Villa, of course, with, 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. The most important thing to know about Wolves is that they're at home, and this gives them a chance because they haven't won a single game away from home this season. If you're looking to take on Wolves players, I would say Mane, Bueno, and maybe Tolu are your best bets. If you insist on Aston Villa players, I would encourage you to take Watkins, Rogers, and Buendia. Now, of course, I would also encourage you to look at Aston Villa's defense, but Wolves have been tougher than expected, and so this game could really go either way. I honestly think Aston Villa have the advantage in this fixture, but they've been so inconsistent that they are likely to concede. Moving on to the next day, Saturday we'll see Bournemouth take on Sunderland in the early kickoff. Now, Sunderland's form, it feels like they're finally playing like a championship side. In their last 5, they've lost 3 and won 2. And those 2 victories are against Burnley and Oxford, so that's not impressive. Bournemouth, on the other hand, have 3 Ws and 2 draws, so they are in great form. In the last encounter, Sunderland beat Bournemouth 3-2, with Enzo Lefebvre, Traore and Brobby scoring, while Adley and Adams scored for Bournemouth. Now, Bournemouth kept a clean sheet last time out against West Ham, and I'm believing in Hill. Honestly, keep Hill. If you don't have him, get him. He's only 4.0, might be 4.1 by the time you listen to this. I would say Hill, Adley, and Ryan are your best bets. And then on the other end, I would say Brobby, Diarra, and Enzo Lefebvre. Sunderland don't tend to do well away from home, so I don't expect much from them. But they've lost 2 at home. Maybe they're going to win away from home now. Maybe now that seal has been broken and they can now do better. Let's wait and see. Burnley, who were impressive against Chelsea last time out when they got the clean sheet, will be taking on Brentford. This is a kind of game where you can be hoping for Brentford to keep a clean sheet. Now, the recent form favors Brentford, who have 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. Burnley have 1 win, 3 losses, and 1 draw. Now, the last time they met, the game ended 3-1. Thiago had 2 goals, Ouattara had 1, and Fleming had 1 for Burnley. So guess how I'm going to recommend players? Because we've seen that following Eze and Mamouche, there might be reason to believe that people have teams they just play better against. So, Fleming, Marcus Edwards, and Anthony for Burnley. Thiago, Ouattara, and Jensen. Why not? But really, Thiago and Ouattara. Liverpool take on West Ham. Now, when we look at their recent form, Liverpool have won 4 out of the last 5 games they have played. West Ham have drawn 2, won 2, and lost 1. Liverpool won in the dying minutes against against Forest, while West Ham drew 0-0 with Bournemouth. So recent form isn't too bad. I think Liverpool are in more impressive form, and I do believe they will be favourites for this one. Van Dijk has been great over the last 2 game weeks, and I don't see a reason why he won't continue that form. Van Dijk, McAllister, and Ekitike are the 3 I would recommend. If you're getting West Ham players, Bowen, Summerville, and Matheus Fernandes are the 3 I would be looking at first before anybody else. Newcastle take on Everton. Everton lost to Manchester United last night. In their last 5 games, first of all, the most important thing to know is that they have not kept a clean sheet, which makes no sense for me because I have 2 Everton defenders which I need to get off of. So, they have not been able to keep a clean sheet. Now, on top of that, they have lost 2, drawn 2, won 1. Newcastle have won 3, drawn 2 in their last 5 fixtures. The Newcastle are in better form. When it comes to head-to-head, it is quite reasonable if you think about it. 2 draws, Everton have 2 wins, and then most recently they lost 4-1. Thiago had 2 goals, Miley had a goal, and Voltemada had a goal. Dewsbury Hall had the goal for Everton. Now, when I'm recommending Everton players, I would say Ndiaye. At this point, Ndiaye, because I wouldn't recommend their defenders. On the Newcastle side, Gordon, Elanga, and Voltemada. And if you're feeling a bit, I don't even know the right word is, choose Thiago. So in fact, I would say choose Thiago, Gordon, and then a 3rd player, whichever one you feel like it. Leeds versus Manchester City. The thing I remember most about this fixture is that this is when we all thought that Haaland was going to do well if you triple captained him. And then this was also the time when Foden was doing the business in his short spell where we thought he was now turning into KDB. What a scam that was. So anyway, the most recent form, Manchester City have won all their 5 games. Leeds have drawn 3, lost 1, won 1. Last time they played Manchester City, they were beaten. They lost 3-2. Foden had 2 goals, Vardiol had 1, Calvert-Lewin had 1, and Mecha had 1. So it does not seem like a wise idea to have defenders from each side. I do believe Manchester City will be favoured. Now, Haaland, O'Reilly, and Semenyo are the players I'd recommend from Manchester City. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Stach, and Groove are the players I'd recommend from Leeds, should you be choosing players from that team. Moving on to Sunday. This will see Brighton take on Nottingham Forest. Now, I believe that Forest are going to lose this game. And not only that, I believe Brighton will keep a clean sheet. I know that's saying a lot. When I look at the last 5 encounters, Brighton have won 2, drawn 2, and lost 1. And the one they lost was 7-0. I don't know if you remember that. It was a crazy game after Forest had lost by a crazy result as well. Now, the last time they played, De Kuiper and Simas scored. Now, I don't think those people will be involved in the outcome this time around. Now, looking at their most recent matches, Brighton have won 1, lost 3, drawn 1. Nottingham Forest have lost 2, drawn 2, 1-1. So they are in similar form, even though Forest are actually in better form. Now, if that is going to influence your team selection, I would say just choose for Brighton, Welbeck, Gomez, and Gross. And if you believe in their defense, like I was just saying, have Van Hecke and Verbruggen. One of them or both of them. Now, if you're going to choose a Forest player, to be fair to them, they were pretty solid and they only conceded the goal in the last dying kicks of the game. I would say Gibbs White, Murillo, and Hutchinson are your best bets from Nottingham Forest. Now, moving on to the next fixture, you have Fulham versus Tottenham, a London derby of sorts. Now, Tottenham were miserable last time out, and now they have lost 3, drawn 1, and won 1 in the last 5 encounters, while Fulham have won 2 and lost 3 in the last 5 fixtures. Now, if you're going to choose Fulham players, Raul Jimenez, Iwobi, and Harry Wilson, clean. Don't even think twice about it. On the other end, if you're going to choose a Spurs player, I would say it's just literally Kolomwani. Kolomwani it is. That's all. I'm not confident in Spurs yet. They play the best team in the country, so maybe it's too early to judge them harshly. Manchester United take on Crystal Palace. Manchester United have been in good form, as we all know. Won 4 out of their last 5. They drew the one against West Ham most recently. Crystal Palace have won 2, drawn 2, and lost 1. So the form isn't bad. When I look at their head-to-head, Manchester United have won 1, lost 3, and drawn 1. Now, both teams have changed significantly, and I feel like the power has swayed in Manchester's favour. And if you should be choosing a Manchester United player, I think you should first start with Sesko, and then Bumo. Wait, I thought Bumo left injured. Yes, he did. You have to play that one by ear. In case he is, go with Ahmad and Bruno Fernandes. On the Crystal Palace side, if you believe in them, Toby Sarr, and then Brun Larsen and Munoz. That's it. Now, the last and final game of the game week will see a North London derby. Not North London, but a London derby. Arsenal versus Chelsea. Now, Arsenal were very impressive in their last game out, and they beat Tottenham 4-1 with Eze still in the show, along with Gyökeres. Chelsea, on the other hand, once they got a red card, they crumbled. In their form of late, Arsenal have won 3 of their last 5 and drawn 2. Chelsea have won 2, drawn 2, lost 1. And the last game they lost was to Arsenal. They lost 1-0. I honestly believe Arsenal are favoured for this fixture, and probably a similar result should ensue. If you believe in Arsenal, I believe you should choose Gabriel, Rice, and either Gyökeres or Saka. On the Chelsea end, João Pedro, Pedro Neto, and Cole Palmer. Do not get Chelsea defenders. Looking at the fixtures, if I was to choose a captain from the Wolves game, we're just going in order. Wolves versus Aston Villa. I would not choose a captain from this game, but if I had to choose, I would say maybe Aston Villa, and I would choose maybe Rodgers. But I have no faith. Actually, I wouldn't choose a captain from this game. Bournemouth versus Sunderland. Over here, I wouldn't also choose a captain from this game. Brentford versus Burnley. I would choose Igor Thiago or Ouattara. Liverpool, it is hard to choose a captain, but given the last 2 games, I would go with Van Dijk and maybe McAllister or Szoboszlai. Newcastle versus Everton. I wouldn't choose a captain from this game. Man City, Haaland or Semenyo, or if you're a super gambler, O'Reilly. Brighton versus Nottingham Forest. I would choose Welbeck in this game, and I would choose Gibbs White. Fulham versus Spurs, Raul Jimenez or Harry Wilson. Man United versus Crystal Palace, Sesko would be my first captain choice. On the other end, I don't think I would choose a Crystal Palace captain. And then if I was to go to the next fixture, Arsenal versus Chelsea. At this point, Gyökeres, Maybe Eze, even though Eze clearly plays his best against Spurs. But maybe he can confine it to London, you know? If you're that gambler, gamble like that. But honestly, if you're not that gambler, I would say Gyökeres or maybe even Gabriel, since they tend to win 1-0. On the Chelsea end, João Pedro or Cole Palmer. Moving on to the FPL FDR. Arsenal take on Chelsea, Brighton, Everton, then they have a blank, and then they have Bournemouth. Honestly, if you can just figure out Arsenal's players going forward, that's it. Defense, minimize it to 1 if you can. Aston Villa have Wolves, Chelsea, Man United, West Ham, and Forest. It's a bit of a mixed bag for a team that's inconsistent, so I would pick and choose the games I have their players playing. Maybe play against Wolves, relax against Chelsea and Man U, then bring them for West Ham and Forest. Bournemouth have Sunderland, Brentford, Burnley, Man United, and then Arsenal. Up until Man United, these next 3 games are winnable for them. Brentford have Burnley, Bournemouth, Wolves, Leeds, and Everton. Wow, this is the right time to get into Brentford. If Igor Thiago scores, I will try my best not to remove him over the next 5 game weeks. Brighton have Nottingham Forest, Arsenal, Sunderland, Liverpool, and Burnley. It's a bit of a mixed bag in that they have Arsenal and Liverpool in there and an unpredictable Sunderland at this point. But they should do well against Forest and Burnley. Burnley have Brentford, Everton, Bournemouth, Fulham, and Brighton. Now, if it wasn't for Wolves, they'll be the clear worst team in the league, and therefore bet against them. Chelsea have Arsenal, and then Aston Villa, and then Newcastle, then Everton and Man City. Get out of Chelsea. Crystal Palace have Man United, Tottenham, Leeds, blank, and then Newcastle. I wouldn't get into Crystal Palace players either. Get out of them. Everton have Newcastle, Burnley, Arsenal, Chelsea, Brentford. Get out of Everton players. Fulham have Tottenham, West Ham, Forest, Burnley, and then Liverpool. Ooh. Fulham have sneaky good fixtures. That's interesting. I would get into Raul Jimenez, Iwobi, and Harry Wilson. A combination of those two. Of Raul Jimenez and one of the other ones. Leeds have Man City, then they have Sunderland, Crystal Palace, Brentford, and Man United. So Sunderland, Crystal Palace, and Brentford, they can get something in those games. Liverpool have West Ham, Wolves, Tottenham, Brighton, and Fulham. Honestly, they can win those 5 games. Okay. I need to figure out who to get from Liverpool. Man City have Leeds, Forest, West Ham, then a blank Gameweek 31, and then Chelsea. All winnable fixtures. Man United have Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, and Leeds. Given the form, they may not win all of these games, but they'll be tough to beat as well. So I see draws and wins in their future. Newcastle have Everton, Man United, Chelsea, Sunderland, and Crystal Palace. With the loss of Bruno Guimaraes, I don't know. I'm just not so confident in them. But let's wait and see. But I wouldn't get into them. But these are not bad fixtures. Nottingham Forest have Brighton, Man City, Fulham, Tottenham, and Aston Villa. Just stay away from Forest. Spurs have Fulham, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, Forest, and Sunderland. These are not bad fixtures, but they are not yet starting. There's been a failure to launch, so we'll have to wait and see. Sunderland have Bournemouth, Leeds, Brighton, Newcastle, and Tottenham. Honestly, if you told me Sunderland will win all these 5 games, I wouldn't be surprised. But they're a bit wishy-washy right now, so approach with caution. West Ham have Liverpool, Fulham, Man City, Aston Villa, and Wolves. Honestly, only Wolves is an easy fixture on this, and that's 5 games away. They just need to hang in there. Wolves have Aston Villa, Liverpool, Brentford, then they have the blank, and then West Ham. They are gone, but they will be competitive. And that's all you can ask from them. And that is it. That is your FPL FDR. Remember, the game week starts on Friday. Have a great remainder of your week. Enjoy the midweek European fixtures and see you on Friday. Bye.